All right, let's head into the papers now. The newspaper stand to get to know what the headlines are across Nigerian newspapers. We'll begin with Business Day this morning. Business Day says tension as Nigerians scramble for PVCs ahead of polls. All right, INEC extends collection deadline and probes extortion. Okay, that's what you see on the front page of Business Day this morning. All right, from Business Day, let's move to the Nation newspaper. The Nation says millions of uncollected PVCs force INEC to shift deadline, and 13.8 million or 13.87 million cards printed for valid registrants. An agency probes alleged extortion. All right, that's what you see on the front page of the Nation newspaper. Millions of uncollected PVCs force INEC to shift the deadline. All right, that's the Nation newspaper. Then First News is next, and it says INEC extends PVC collection deadline by 8 days. INEC extends PVC collection deadline by 8 days. Commission says collection now to continue till January 29. All right, Commission says collection now to continue till January 29. Okay, from there, let's now go to Daily Trust. Daily Trust is the next one we're looking at, and it says Tinubu Atiku Kwankwaso will be scramble for Kano's 5.9 million votes. Okay, Tinubu Atiku Kwankwaso will be scramble for Kano's 5.9 million votes. All right, APC banking on Buhari, Ganduje, others, and PDP relying on Shekarau and work against me and regret it. Kwankwaso warns Ganduje. All right, why Kano is the bride, Professor Fagi. All right, you get to know why Kano. Everyone is heading to Kano to look forward to the votes in Kano. Okay, from there let's go. Let's go to Daily Times. Daily Times newspaper says 2023 election, don't meddle in Nigeria's internal affairs. Buhari warns envoys. Okay, he made this statement yesterday when he was receiving letters of credence from some ambassadors that came in. Says Nigeria, ECOWAS, member states implementing strategies to halt coups as 6 ambassadors present letters of credence. Right, all this you see on the front page of the Daily Times. Okay, this day is next. Again, Buhari warns foreign missions against interference in Nigeria's politics. Again, Buhari warns foreign missions against interference in Nigeria's politics. Okay, this is what you see on the front page of this day newspaper. This Nigeria is the next one now. This Nigeria says polls don't meddle. On the polls, don't meddle. This is as Buhari cautions foreign missions, says Nigeria working with ECOWAS to secure region and halt coups. Okay, you see all that on the front page of this Nigeria. All right, Kemi.
Right, and the leadership is next, still towing the line as previous papers have, and talking about President Muhammadu Buhari's directive to foreign powers, telling them don't interfere in our elections. That's on leadership. It goes further to say that the president has also asked the new diplomats to stay within their official limits, while former President Olusegun Obasanjo is quoted there, warning against voting nation destroyers, as he calls them, and urges electorate to consider candidates' mental and physical fitness. That's on the leadership. Let's check out Blueprint now. It's a different big story there. The biggest headline is on the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, who says that 10,000 terrorism and graft cases, and as well as others prosecuted under the Buhari administration, whilst FG recovers 1.8 billion naira, 6.3 million pounds, 5.4 million pounds, as well as $390,000, while the proceeds, he says, expended on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, as well as the Second Niger Bridge and others. And there, EFCC quoted there admitting that they arrested former presidential advisor Doyin Okukwe in error. The Punch is next. It's leading with a report on The budget deficit rising by 370%, hitting 47 trillion naira under President Muhammadu Buhari's government. The president to pass on $15.62 billion dollar-euro bond payments to next government, says The Punch. It's the next one now. Before me is Nigerian News Direct. FG generates 1.8 trillion naira from sales of forfeited assets. Governments profiled a total of 3,000 terrorism cases in 8 years. That's according to the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami. Now, dropping food prices not feasible now. That's the big story on the Nature News. Analysts there saying drop in food prices not feasible now. Mike.
Okay, I'd like us to look at the story on the front page of the Blueprint, and because the Attorney General of the Federation came out to say when he was addressing the President in the State House that about 10,000 terrorism graft cases, others have been prosecuted under Buhari. All right, and the federal government recovers 1.8 billion naira and 6.3 million euros, or sorry, pounds, and 5.4 million euros, $390,000. All proceeds expended on legal, and the proceeds have been expended on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, as well as a second Niger bridge and others. Now, the point there is when it comes to prosecution of corruption cases, of course, the government is carrying out all of that responsibility, the EFCC, ICPC, and so on. But Nigerians don't get to hear a lot about some of this prosecution. And especially when we talk about, or when you hear about corruption, people expect to hear the big names, the big names. So sometimes you don't even get to know about the civil servant that is being prosecuted somewhere, or a company secretary that is being prosecuted somewhere, or maybe someone who is involved in internet fraud cases being prosecuted somewhere. All of those cases sometimes don't seem to get the headlines the way that the big names get the headlines. But I think prosecutions are going on. What do you make of that?
Well, you're right. Prosecution is going on, and there are several cases in court. But it's one thing for me to say, okay, 10,000, okay, that's a lot. And of course, we can't forget that this was, one of the biggest missions, so to speak, that the president harped on when he assumed office. So it's understandable that they would, but it's one thing for someone to be prosecuted, it's another thing for his guilt to be established, since the law recognizes his innocence until proven guilty. So, and then the issue of the long-standing issue of delays in prosecuting these cases. Many of these defendants wait a long time before the court ascertains their guilt or otherwise. Though, of course, there's the element of delay tactics. Often, despite the fact that the laws have been enabled to prevent these delay tactics, but yes, we don't see the speed that one would expect in cases like this. I mean, this is someone's name at stake, so one would expect that. But then there's the reality on ground that there are so many cases in court that some would say doesn't even have business. Of course, there's the clamor for special courts that will focus on corruption matters so that they are not, being victims of the regular delays and, the long time it takes. It doesn't also end at the High Court. Of course, there's still room for appeal. I mean, look at what happened in the landmark case of former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor-Kalu. 12 years at the High Court. He was found guilty by the High Court, and then he goes upstairs and it's upturned. We are still on the verge. EFCC is still on the verge, I should say, of, they were still saying that they will still press on to prosecute again. Bringing in witnesses. You can just imagine how long. There's so many, top politicians who are also on trial, but give it to them. There are some trials that the government has won, but then it's not over because there's still room for appeals, like I said. But, well, the AGF has said theirs is left for the people to judge and know whether is it selective, as some have alleged, is it selective prosecution, like you also said. And of course, let's not forget the other issue again of people, even after they go to serve time, the government can also find some of them deserving of, like the Daria case now, deserving that, okay, they should be pardoned. And that has also been quite controversial as to, so what amounts to the long time, prosecuting, establishing their guilt after all. It's a long walk. We all hope that justice is served at the end of the day, and where people are found guilty, they should pay for their crimes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The point there is, it's a long walk, and this is as democracy continues to grow or begins to become more entrenched. Sometimes we'll become more expeditious, understanding how we should handle some of these things. Like you said, recall in 2015 when President Buhari came in at first, he was advocating for special courts to be set for corruption cases because he saw the magnitude of issues of corruption and the cases and the reports and allegations and all of that. But if there are no outright prosecution by a court of competent jurisdiction, you can't go about saying, even if you know that the person is corrupt, you can't make conclusions until the court gives that judgment,
absolutely.
and all of that. So that hasn't been. We've not seen the materialization of the issue of special courts. Maybe as we get along, maybe in the next administration, depending on who emerges president, might want to see that to the latter. However, that would involve a lot of reforms within the judiciary, because the point there is, you're not going to bring the lawyers who are going to handle that from the skies or from the heaven. It's still going to be the lawyers within the system. And if we have, let's assume we have 100,000 lawyers, it is from amongst them you're still going to select some for the special court, as the case may be. So,
right, you're right, Mike. And of course, Lagos has tried it out. It's about 5 years old, if I'm correct, at the least, by the way. And the special courts is entrenched in Lagos, giving room for them to fast track some of these cases. You also made a point quickly about civil servants. Some have said this corruption, in high places in government is not without the enablement of
exactly.
civil servants. So,
exactly.
So we want to see corruption fought to the letter.
To the letter.
Absolutely.
Okay. We have to end this here now.